Okay, good afternoon everybody. It's just turned 2 o'clock. Welcome to the Council Cabinet on Tuesday the 12th of September. Apologies. Got apologies from Cabinet members Shiraz Khan and Carmel Swan, the leader of the opposition group, Steve Hassel. So Jonathan's here to deputise for Steve. Welcome, Jonathan. Also, Andy Smith, our Strategic Director, sends his apologies, as well as the Youth Mayor and our Deputy Youth Mayor. Are there any others, Karen? Thank you. I don't have any late items for the agenda, and I don't believe there's any petitions. Is that right? That's right. Okay. Identification of urgent items to which call-in will not apply. There aren't any. Cabinet, are there any declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. And could somebody propose the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of August as a true record? Thank you, Councillor Peatfield and Councillor Dinser. So matters referred to us by the recommendations from the Exec Scrutiny Board. We'll do those item by item, but we must be doing something right. There were no recommendations, or very minimal recommendations, from the Executive Scrutiny Board last night, who were just about to quorum it, I think. Unfortunately, it wasn't a particularly well-attended Executive Scrutiny Board, but that's a separate matter, which I'll ask group leaders from all groups to reflect upon at a later stage. Okay, key decisions. Agenda item 8. The first one is development of the Riverside site on Duke Street. So I believe we've got Ian Fulliger here to take us through this report, but just in Councillor Khan's absence, I'll just say a few words. So members will be familiar with our ambition to increase the scale and the pace of affordable homes in the city, and particularly new build. The Housing Revenue Account business plan will fund around 100 new properties or acquired affordable homes per year. This scheme proposes to build 12 new affordable homes on the former Britannia Court building. The scheme consists of 6 two-bedroom properties, 2 three-bedroom properties, and in much demand 4 4-bed properties. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Ian?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that all the properties will be built to the National Future Home Standard. That will mean that they are 75 to 80% more efficient than those houses currently being built by the private sector today in Derby. So they will be highly energy efficient, using less carbon than, or emission less carbon than homes that are being built today, with the plan that they should be completed in the summer of 2025, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ian. Yeah, sorry, that's a really important point. I think as much as we can encourage developers to build to the Future Home Standard, I think it's upon the council to set that standard, and where we can, we should always try and achieve that, so we can lead by example. Okay, Cabinet, any comments? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just to say that we welcome the development of these homes in Darley Ward. The site that they're going to be built on has been derelict for some time, and I think I'm pleased to see that these homes are being built to a very high standard, particularly referencing our need for homes that deal with the growing costs of energy and the need to be mindful of CO2 emissions. So overall, I think this is a good development. We will be keeping a close eye on it in terms of ensuring that the the building job is a good one. I'm sure it will be. But overall, we welcome this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Just going to bring in Councillor Smell and then I'll come back to Cabinet members. Councillor Smell.
Thank you, Chair. There's no doubt about the fact that we do need to build our housing stock up still. So, you know, in principle, I do support that we're continuing to do that. Also worth noting that I think it's a great idea that we're bringing the private sector in to help build these sites. I think there's 6 sites in total now. Something I know that's been well documented, even when we was in administration, that Derby Homes have been struggling to build housing stock on their own. So to bring in the private sector is something that I fully support. Just a quick query around, obviously, the finance of it. It is 3.7 million, so obviously it has been well documented in the media this week, and you only have to look at the comments from the public about the perception of this cost. It does equate to a £316,000 per unit. So my question and challenge would be, do we consider that really good value for money in the long run? And if so, we also need to be able to display that to the public, because building housing has to be a priority. We understand that. But equally, you now have to look at the comments regarding this site. It does seem very expensive. So we just need to justify that expenditure. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Whitby and Councillor Hazelgrave, and then I'll come back and answer Councillor Smelt.
Thank you, Chair. Just very supportive in general of the scheme's green credentials, and very supportive of the fact that there are 4-bedroom properties in this scheme, which obviously are much needed. I imagine the people that move into these properties will be there for the long term because they'll be very attractive. I understand Councillor Smale is saying, I think, that these were concerns raised by ourselves in the group, but I think we've been convinced that on balance this is a good scheme and much needed. Thank you.
Councillor Hazelgrave.
Just drawing attention to the socio-economic implications. I think that's given us a great deal of comfort in terms of our decision. And I'll just read it out. The purpose of developing new council homes is to provide secure, affordable and high-quality homes for people whose housing needs may not be met by the private market. Some of the people on the housing register are among the most disadvantaged in the city, and the proposed use of the land targets support towards these people.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelgrave. So on a couple of those points, Councillor Smale, the first one, which I always pull officers up on this point, and I'll do the same with you. Let's refer to these as homes and not units. People are going to live in these houses, and it's their homes. I have an issue when people refer to homes as units, because these aren't units. On the value for money question, excellent question. It's exactly the question I asked when this was at pre-agenda, and I was reassured the square metre cost per building these properties is towards the top end of what we would expect, but very much within market norms. And the reason it's towards the top end is because we've opted for the Future Homes standard, as we've already spoken about. And again, it's important the council leads by example and sets these standards, so hopefully other developers and providers of homes will do the same. Okay. Cabinet, all those in favour of item 8? Thank you, that's carried. Key decision, item 9, update on the Darley Abbey Mills Bridge. So again, a very important report. Last July, there was a report in front of Cabinet that approved the installation of a prefabricated footbridge and access ramps at Darley Park Mills, Walters Walkway, I think more commonly known as now. This followed an emergency inspection that had taken place earlier of the original Mills footbridge, which led to the access to the bridge being closed because of significant public safety at the time. with the short-term response now in place, the focus has been on what could be done for a more longer-term solution, which is still ongoing. This report sets out two options for continuing with a rental scheme for all the equipment associated to provide the bridge, or a cost-benefit position for the council to purchase the bridge and carry out inspections. And given the state of this council's finances, we'll continue to look at any option we can to save money. Rachel, is there anything else you wanted to add on this? Is it Rachel or is it Verna? Sorry, Verna.
That's all right. That's fine. No, I suppose just a couple of points, and that's just to say that this is a pragmatic response to, managing our financial exposure as we develop those longer-term solutions. And it's very much not, this isn't the solution. This is as I say, a way that we manage our finances sensibly over the next 5 years as we develop the long-term solution and permanent solution for the bridge. But there are a lot of issues to work through in the meantime.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming in on this again, because obviously this is a critical issue in Darley Ward, but I would also emphasise that it's not just Darley Ward, because obviously it provides a link across the river around, for a circuit around Darley Park and Darley playing fields, which is used by many, many people across the city. It was a vital lifeline to many people during the COVID time. So it's a really, really important part of the city's kind of exercise and well-being facilities in what is one of Derby's premium parks. So, and it's critically important for the people of Darley Abbey, not least the people who live on the Mills side of the river, who, if there is flooding, which only happens usually, say, 1 or 2 days a year, on the Haslam's Lane side of the river, they are in effect cut off. So this footbridge at the moment is a lifeline for them, and it makes them feel part of the village. So it's all extremely important. I'm grateful for the council leaders and leadership for recognising the importance of doing something about this bridge, which, let's face it, was not the council's bridge, and still the council doesn't claim ownership for it. So I think it shows maturity on the part of the council that will be welcomed by people in Darley, that they're once again stepping in to ensure that when the temporary lease ends next October, that this bridge and this access is still there for the people of Darley Abbey and Darley, but also the whole city. And I would say and stress to anybody watching or people in the city that every effort is being made to find funds for the permanent replacement bridge. The council cannot alone make that funding commitment, because it's going to be in the figure of millions of pounds. So we continue to engage with the government and other bodies to see where that money comes from, but that effort is still ongoing. So this is just a very pragmatic, as Verna said, interim measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Smell.
Thanks, Chair. Just a few points to highlight. I don't think no one disagrees that some form of bridge, obviously, when we as administration, it obviously first got implemented, but I just wanted, though, obviously on 4.5, it does state some of the key risks, and one of that being taking ownership of the prefabricated bridge, compared to a hire arrangement, could enhance perception that, we actually own this bridge and taking full responsibility. So where does that sit on our risk register? Is it something that's going to be quite high? Is it going to be red, orange, green? I think some clarity around the risk register on that would be great. I'm also understanding residents nearby haven't been consulted on. Has there going to be any consultation on this to let residents understand what's happening in the next process? Now, forgive me, people may think 5 years in council speaking is a medium-term solution, but 5 years is a long time for a lot of people and may not be considered a medium-term solution. So does this not look like we're kicking the can down the road a little bit to resolve it in 5 years, or is there ambition to make sure that we resolve this much sooner? I don't want 5 years to be a target, but if we can resolve it in 2 to 3 years, that would be great. And obviously there's going to be a lot of debate around what the bridge is going to look like. You know, I'm sure there's going to be lots of thoughts and ideas what that looks like. But I just want some reassurances on the risk register, residents' consultation, and hopefully that we can look to resolve this bridge problem much sooner than just waiting for 5 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smale. I'm going to ask the officers to report to you outside of Cabinet on where exactly it sits on the risk register and what the colour is. I'm not sure of that myself. All I know is that this saves us money to take the decision to purchase the equipment for this. I've done something similar to this in my professional career outside of here. When you have a long-term scaffolding infrastructure, it pays dividends to purchase that structure and own it than to pay higher charges for a structure which isn't going to change once it's up and it's erected. It's always more beneficial to purchase it. I'm not sure whether there would have been any need to consult on purchasing the structure once the structure was up. What I do know, talking to local ward councillors and talking to some residents of the area, it was important to regain access across and put the bridge in place and to maintain that bridge. An option would be to remove it and say, this isn't our responsibility. That could have been an option, but that would have been the worst option for local residents and the impact on both residents and businesses. I'm not quite sure what you're suggesting, and if you were sat here, whether you'd do anything different, to be honest with you, but that's for another matter. I'll bring Councillor Martin in, and I'll ask officers if they want to add anything to that. Councillor Martin.
Just on that point, Chair, of we obviously of engagement with residents. Obviously, we do engage with residents all the time as ward councillors, and I very much agree with what you said, Chair, that this is a pragmatic solution by the council. There have been ongoing consultation meetings with local residents. I believe the last one was in early July when I unfortunately was away, so unable to attend, but I know my fellow councillors attended. So we have constant engagement with people. This doesn't change the status of anything. And in fact, as I speak now, I have in front of me an email from the leader of one of the Darley Abbey community associations expressing approval and understanding of why this measure has been taken. So I think the consultations really have to focus on the desire and the wish for what form the permanent replacement bridge would take, and that is where consultations have been focused. And so obviously they will continue, and as I said before, I'm aware that every effort is being made to secure the funding so that this is just a pragmatic measure for now, and it doesn't become a sort of medium-term solution for the bridge over the river there. Thank you.
Councillor Dinsey, did you indicate?
I think, wrong button. I think Councillor Smale talked about ambition. The ambition, when this bridge was put in place, I'm not sure what the ambition was in terms of how temporary or long-term or medium-term this is going to be. But the reality is, you will know, officers have been working hard and will continue to work hard to find a longer-term solution. But one of the big difficulties, as identified in this report, is ownership. And that didn't get done in the previous administration. It's probably going to be hard long to find out who the ownership is and then to ask or get that done. But ultimately, as Councillor Martin said, we have a responsibility for the citizens of Derby. And it is a good connection, albeit by foot at the moment. The longer term, in terms of businesses and others, a more permanent structure allowing vehicles to go across is needed. So the ambition is there, but the reality has to be faced. Ownership will actually determine how we progress this. So therefore, this decision is very pragmatic and actually, in the long term, saving council funds. That can't be a bad thing.
Well said, Councillor Dinser. Sorry, Werner.
It's all right. I just wanted to come back on the risk register piece, Chair. As this is a project in its own right, obviously it has its own project risk register, so that the risk ownership risk is set in that risk register. It goes through our project management office for our corporate assurance, and therefore the risk will be taken through as per our risk processes.
Thank you, Werner. And just for completeness, this obviously was at exec scrutiny last night, and those members that were present at exec scrutiny last night noted the report and also supported the proposal to purchase the existing prefabricated footbridge and access ramps to maintain accessibility. So exec scrutiny were very supportive of the report last night as well. Okay, Cabinet, so recommendations for item 8, 2.1 to 2.3. All those in favour, please. Thank you. They're carried. Item 10 under key decisions is additional capital loan request. I'm going to shut up here and bring in Councillor Peatfield, who not just since she's been the Cabinet lead for regeneration for a number of years now, as a local ward councillor and deputy leader of the opposition, has had extensive involvement with this project, been very supportive and active in getting it to where it is now. So I'll hand over to Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Chair. Great Northern Classics will be a new purpose-built facility at the former Rolls-Royce Heritage Centre. It's a start-up business focused on the preservation and development of crucial skills for the classic vehicle industry by addressing the skills shortage in the sector. It will serve as a centre of excellence for heritage vehicle expertise, bringing together multi-skilled artisans, trainees and traders in one venue. Great Northern Classics have approached the Council to support by granting an additional capital loan facility to complete the funding required to develop the site. An additional £250,000 secured capital loan requested in addition to the previous loan of 1.25, which was approved in March 22. It's important to note that originally the Great Northern Classics did request 1.5 million, but actually was only approved 1.25. So the shortfall that they're coming back to us for is part of their original forecast that they needed. So I think it's very important to note that this doesn't feel like them coming to ask for more. This feels like them coming to ask for what they originally intended and budgeted for in the first place. The expected total investment in the facility of 2.5 million, of which the founders, the investors, are contributing 1 million themselves, and the remainder is proposed to come from council support. A lot of the benefits are going to not only benefit the local area in terms of regeneration, but the city as a whole. Up to 32 small businesses could be accommodated on the site. Approximately 100 new jobs are expected to be created, and certainly 27 of those relocated jobs by year 6, and also local supply chain benefits. There is also very much the ability to support our council's ambition for the Derby Promise, for example, through school visits, work experience, learning from local experts, and apprenticeship opportunities. It supports the wider Osmaston Regeneration Programme, which the Council has supported over a number of years. That's delivered, for example, the regeneration of Marble Hall, new housing on the Rolls-Royce Main Works site, development of Merlin Park site by Ivy Grove Developments next door to Great Northern Classics as well. There's a lot of potential to generate a tourist foot flow through the city, from the regional area and the national area. The site has heritage and engineering at its core, which is very reflective of the whole area and, of course, the city, and these are things that we are keen to promote. I'll leave that there and pass over for any further comments.
Sorry, come on, icon, Karen. Anything else you wanted to add, Steve?
No, I think Councillor Beefield's covered it well. What I would say, just a bit of clarity on the 1.25 to date, they've done it as staged drawdowns. There's been 250,000 at a time, and ahead of each drawdown, there's been a site visit by one of the economic growth team to focus on spend to date, activities to date, and we're very confident that this is the final piece of the puzzle. So, and they've had really good control on costs, which in this environment is pretty impressive.
Thank you, Steve. That's good to know. There is a confidential paper on this item as well, but it's very little more information in that paper. It's just the sort of commercial details. Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess just a point of clarification, really, in terms of both this item and the subsequent item. I know there's been some comments about why, given the council's challenging financial position, we're giving money to organisations in form of loans. Well, of course, the important differentiating factor here is it's a loan, so the money gets paid back. We obviously put also measures in place to ensure that the council's investment is protected. So there will be a charge against any assets that are involved in both this and the subsequent item on today's agenda. So I think just an important point for clarification, Chair, on the basis that the council is not cash poor. We are resource poor in the sense of it's our revenue funding that's a problem. We do not have a shortage of cash. We're a relatively cash-rich organisation on the basis that we obviously get in council tax and business rates and things like that, and income from car parking charges, etc., etc., etc. So this is largely a cash flow transaction. The money will be repaid over a period of time, and of course the council also levies a fee and a level of interest. So that is subsequently the council benefits financially as a result of these two transactions. So I think it's just important to make that distinction, Chair, on the basis that clearly very recently we've had coverage in the press about the council's financial position. I think it's important that I set that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. Councillor Smale.
Thanks, Chair. Just first of all to congratulate Councillor Peatfield on announcing a raft of Conservative projects and manifesto deliveries there regarding this and the subsequent area around the Sinfin site. This, of course, is something that we do support. It is a project that started under us when we was at administration. My only query would be, is the £250,000 that they're asking for, it just states it was through lack of a private finance. Is that because someone withdrew, or was that because they couldn't genuinely get that £250,000? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smale. I'm sure Councillor Peatfield will take those congratulations. If you really want to know, this project started way before 2018, and the concept of this project has been spoken about for well before that, but thank you for pointing that out. Steve, did you want to add anything on there? But I do believe it is because it's a new business, the income generation isn't visible yet, so the offers from the private sector weren't forthcoming, if that's my understanding, but you might want to add on that.
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail in the public section, Chair, but yes, that's along those lines. It's not an issue, it's more a change in the wider economy. So raising funds from investors now is significantly different to what it was in 2021 when the project first envisaged. So first round had no issues, second round, which was a completely separate round, fell a little bit short of expectations. So that is where that support comes in as well.
Thank you for that, Steve. And let's go back to the recommendations from Exec Scrutiny, item 10, Exec Scrutiny Board resolved to note the report. Okay, let's go to the recommendations then, please, Cabinet. So item 10, recommendations 2.1 and 2.2. All those in favour, please. Thank you, and that's carried. Okay, item 11, again, an item in the open section and in the confidential section. a capital loan for city centre property purchase. Again, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Chair. This report describes a really exciting opportunity to help transform and regenerate a critical city centre location that's been hit hard by market forces and the impact of the pandemic. Cabinet is asked to approve a 1.3 secured capital loan towards a first phase of costs totalling circa 3.25 million and mainly involving the purchase of key properties. The second phase will involve the refurbishment and the letting of the properties, which will be subject to further due diligence and approvals in due course. The exact details of the property and companies involved can't be disclosed at this point for commercial reasons, but the plans include creating new homes, new workspace, new hospitality offer to add vibrancy and footfall to the city centre. The original ask of the council was for a capital funding of 3.8 million relating to the project in its totality, that's phase 1 and 2, but it is proposed to only consider capital loan support of 1.3 million towards purchase only, which is phase 1 as part of this report. The council is in active dialogue with the developer on proposals for phase 2 and will bring back any further funding support requested in due course to support the redevelopment element of the project. Key benefits for the city and for the council providing the 1.3 million loan is expected to unlock an investment of 10.75 million. The developer involved has a great track record in property development and regeneration, and appropriate due diligence and checks will be carried out prior to the signing of the loan agreement. The project fully supports the city centre ambition to increase footfall, increase city centre living and jobs, boost city centre visitor spend and improve the nighttime economy. Once completed and occupied, the properties are expected to deliver additional business rate revenue streams of circa 100,000 per annum, together with council tax payments from the planned residential element. That's probably as much as I can say without going into the confidential papers at a later point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peatfield. Councillor Smith?
Thanks, Chair. Just some clarity, if that's all right, please. You may remember in the 14th of September at Council Cabinet, an Eastern Gateway funding arrangement was extended regarding an additional loan of around about 1.6 million. Obviously, note that this report is asking for a transference of that capital programme from the Eastern Gateway budget, obviously 240,000 in 23-24 and then 1.06 million in 24-25. So what happens with the Eastern Gateway project? Does that put that in jeopardy to finance this, or is this to strengthen and support the Eastern Gateway as well? That's just a question around that. Obviously, phase 2, obviously I know they originally came along asking for a combined amount of 3.8 million for phase 1 and phase 2, and understandably we're being prudent with the loans that we're doing, and obviously we're helping to deliver phase 1. Councillor Peatfield, I know you stated the good track record that the company's got in delivering this, but have we got strong confidence of the finance arrangements for phase 2 in the long term to make sure that phase 1 isn't done without any sacrifice or any loss of money? Thank you.
You're doing better than me if you understand that, but yeah, go for it.
So yes, I think we all remember the point where 5 million was allocated to the Eastern Gateway, and the previous cabinet awarded another 1.3, I believe. We questioned it at the time as to whether that was a wise investment on top of what was already there. However, based on the fact that it couldn't be sure that it could be delivered in terms of Derbyan's proposals for that money. And lo and behold, as it happens, it looks like their plans have changed, and therefore their budget has changed, and therefore that has freed up that money and allowed us to reallocate it actually in a place where it will be far more secure, deliver far more for the city, and we have far more confidence that that 1.3 will be wisely invested. Thank you, Chair.
Steve, anything to add to that?
I suppose more to add to the second point, it's difficult to share any detail at this point of the meeting, but in terms of any phase 2 ask, there'll be a full development appraisal as part of that, which would square that sort of circle in terms of funding package, etc. So it'll all be looked into before actually any funds are released.
Okay, Councillor Smell, now you've had a bit of a tip. Any further questions? No? Okay. Just pointing and highlighting something Councillor Peatfield referred to in her opening comments. By providing £1.3 million of funding, the council is actually attracting a further £10.75 million of investment into our city centre, and we get that £1.3 million back with an arrangement fee and with interest as well. And it's just absolutely makes sense. You know, we've got to again lead by example to encourage investment in our city centre if we want to see these improvements taking shape and taking place, creating that vibrancy in our city centre. Nobody's going to come knocking on our door and saying and offering to do this on their own. It needs the council to have that ambition, work with our partners and create that investment. Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, again, obviously, not in a position to say too much about the proposals at this stage, although I understand them to be ambitious and will add, you know, the much-needed vibrancy that particular part of the city desperately needs. What I will say, of course, is that the other factor in our thinking about this is that one, it will bring those units back into use. So the ground floor units, we're obviously targeting at some kind of commercial usage. So that might be food and beverage, it might be retail space, ideally independent sector retail space, make and trade, and align really well with the vision that we've got around the market hall. And secondly, the property above, we will the developer is looking at turning that into residential accommodation, and some of those properties haven't been occupied for over 50 years. So that is a significant period of time, and of course if we can bring those properties back into use, in terms of commercial space that's business rates for the council, in terms of residential space that's council tax for the council. So both things are a win-win and bringing, you know, much needed vibrancy and spend, of course, to hospitality businesses. So if it goes the way that we want it to, this could be a real positive investment for the city. Thank you.
Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, at the end of the day, we're talking about investment in our city in terms of gateways, in terms of linking some of our key projects together. And there is, you know, still future High Streets funding going to the Eastern Gateway. There's still a great pot of money there that is still invested in making that happen. This allows the spreading out of that money to actually further the investment, making it spread further across the city and linking up those essential projects that we have in the making. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peatfield and Paul. Okay, so item 11, recommendations 2.1 through to 2.4 on the second page. All those in favour, please. Thank you. That's carried. Okay, item 12 under contract and financial procedures matters. A whole raft of items there to tidy up. I'll save my breath and let Alison take us through them.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's quite a big report for this meeting. There's seven items for consideration within this report. The first one is in relation to a new scheme to be added to the capital programme, and that's a purchase of vehicles for £68,000, and those vehicles will support the drainage and flood risk management team. They are the oldest in the fleet and they do require replacement. So the proposal in the report is to add £68,000 to the capital programme over a 2-year period, 23-24 and 24-25. The second item on the report is in relation to some additional funding for public health, and that's to support substance misuse. As part of the government's intention to reduce rough sleeping and address some of its links to substance misuse, the council has been given the opportunity to bid for some grant funding to improve drug and alcohol outcomes for rough sleepers. We've had two previous tranches for this funding, and this is the third tranche, and it will be available for 24-25, and the indicative allocation is the same as our previous allocations, which is circa £319,000. The details in the report explain the parameters of the grant. The third item is in relation to some new funding to support adult social care market sustainability and improvement. The government have recently announced the allocation of £570 million worth of ring-fence funding to support the workforce in adult social care provision. The fund will be allocated in 23-24 to national level of 365 million, so Derby's allocation will be circa 1.747 million. The purpose of the grant is to enable local authorities to make improvements to adult social care, and in particular to increase social care workforce capacity and retention, and reducing social care waiting times and increasing fee rates paid to social care providers. We have an item on the report in relation to a bid to Nottingham City Council for primary care funding, and the bid's to provide funding to provide support to Derby citizens whose mental and physical health is a barrier to them finding work or maintaining their employment. And our Derby Adult Learning Service will deliver the employment outcomes in partnership with Nottingham Futures. The priority communities for this particular project, specific to Derby, are deaf community, people with autism, people from areas of disadvantage, and people with mental health challenges. The sum of that funding is £755,000. We then have a series of bids in relation to Home Office grants, which total £5.2 million. The broken down is £1 million is in relation to our Homes for Ukraine sponsorship scheme, where we estimate a funding of £1 million, and this is a continuation of previous funds and allows individuals resident in the UK to sponsor named Ukrainian guests. The government provide funding at a rate of £5,900 to each new arrival. Our estimate there is around £1 million to the city. The second element in the Home Office grants is in relation to the Afghan permanent resettlement, and we estimate funding of £2 million. The Afghan relocations and assistance policy went live on the 1st of April 2021 and offers relocation to and other assistance to those who served alongside our armed forces in Afghanistan and provided important support to His Majesty's Government Defence and Security Mission there. And it's predominantly those who were employed directly or in certain cases via contracts and who are assessed to be at serious risk as a result of that work. When these families moved into settled accommodation, the Home Office provides local authorities with a range of tariffs to support that resettlement and integration, and there's details in the report around those tariffs. We then have £1.7 million in relation to the Asylum Dispersal Grant Scheme, and the Immigration and Asylum Act 1999 is the basis for the asylum support system, and last year the Home Office announced the move to a full dispersal model, which will reduce the end of use of hotels and allowing the Home Office to procure dispersal programmes with the private sector company. Derby has and continues to be a prime location for the procurement of properties to accommodate destitute asylum seekers. And then we have the Afghan Bridging Hotel Support Scheme, an estimated funding value of £500,000, and this is to support local authorities in providing wraparound support. The Home Office made an offer to local authorities for funding up to £28 per service user per day to deliver wraparound support services to Afghan refugees living in Bridging Hotel accommodation. We then have a contract waiver, and that's an extension of a contract with Water Plus Group Limited. And in April 2017, the water industry was deregularised, and it provided the opportunity for commercial customers in England to go to the wider market for their water and waste provision. In order to take advantage of that, the council has to provide information on the location of the water meters across the city. And after a number of requests, waiver Plus have not yet provided the full details of that information. So in order to appoint a water bill validation special contractor for a 2-year period while we gather that data. So the proposal is that a waiver is in place to provide compliance with the public contract regulations under a new water and wastewater contract until that can be procured. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Alison. And I think this report just goes to show the level of work, not just officers in finance and treasury management and all contracts and procurement have to go through with the government's arrangements for funding nowadays, where you're constantly bidding for pots of money, having to put bids in, having to receive grants, rather than a better settlement on our revenue support grant. The extra work and effort that goes in is absolutely appreciated, because the money is welcome and money is much needed, but surely there's got to be a better formula to fund local authorities so we can get on with the job that's at hand rather than shuffling pieces of paper around. Cabinet, anybody like to come in? Councillor Smell.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to discuss around the Home Office grants. Obviously, being in the situation ourselves of the complications of dealing with asylum seekers and the pressures that it can put on council resources, especially adult social care, you ask children. Is this funding going to be able to plug some of the shortfalls that we had in that area, or is this funding for us to allow more asylum seekers into the city? That's all I want to know. Because I know there is some major pressures in this area, and obviously any additional grant money is welcome to us and to help support the teams. I'm just conscious that the deficits could keep getting wider if the Home Office don't supply the money further forward for any more future settlers in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smale. Why am I not surprised out of 11 items and recommendations you focus in on that particular one? Alison, would you like to come in?
Yes. The majority of this funding is to fund existing pressures within the system. It's not the totality of funding that we get from the Home Office. We do already have existing funding to support unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, for example, that comes from the Department of Health. So it is funding that will help us mitigate some of the pressures that we've got in the system.
Councillor Dinser.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Smale is asking questions as if even part of the administration, when previous funds and grants have been coming, he knows full well that what we get from government, the Home Office and other parts, for these much needed resources is never sufficient, and the demands are greater. And then, asking us questions now, what does this entail, is a little bit, what's the word, mischievous to say the least. I think it's always it's welcome to get these grants. Getting them in piecemeal doesn't really allow us to coordinate some of this work, because the needs of all these different groups is probably similar in terms of rehabilitation, rehousing. Getting small bits of money doesn't help. Having sort of a part of money that we can use more effectively would be wiser, but that's discussions to be had somewhere else in terms of how funding is piecemeal allocated to local authorities to deliver much needed initiatives like this. But we should welcome this funding. It's something that's needed to help rehabilitate asylum seekers who have helped and contributed, many of whom have helped and contributed to this country's encounters and activities abroad, and also the help for the Ukraine community, where the unwanted, unnecessary, but very, very damaging war, which is making lots of people homeless and victims. And we will do the best we can with this funding to make sure that we welcome asylum seekers and support them in the best way we can, despite the piecemeal and lack of funding which comes from central government.
Sure.
Thanks, Chair. I don't, there's nothing to suggest that I'm being anti-immigration on this particular issue. I understand the situation the council's been in. I've been in the shoes that you guys have been in, and I understand the briefings that you get regarding some of the pressures that you're facing around this area. I think we all support the additional income. There's no doubt about that, but I just want to make sure that we don't create the deficits even wider. So if there's any way to support, I mean, the Home Office, I would always advocate to them that, you know, we as a council, we as a local authority do need more resource around this to help to be able to support some of these people into our society. So I want to dispel any myths right here, right now, that I'm touching a taboo subject. I just want to make sure that the council's finances are in a better position when we come to deal with this situation, because they are important settlement schemes, and I think Derby is a welcoming city, and I want to make sure that, you know, we as a council are able to support everyone and that the finances are in place. But I just wanted to clarify on that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Smale. I think that was an offer of helping us to make sure we put this council back on a secure financial footing, having left £36 million previously in reserves to find when we inherited the Q1 outturn report, that on the current trajectory, the council reserves on the 31st of March would hit zero. So any support to help us turn that situation around, lobby government for additional support for Derby would be more than welcome. And if you let us know in your shadow team who the responsible person for finance is, I'm sure we can arrange more detailed briefings and enlist the support of that person to make sure, as the Chief Exec has outlined earlier on, our financial position revenue-wise remains in a very serious position. We've seen local authorities entering into Section 114 notices just in this last week or two. The situation in Derby remains dire. It has been for a while. We'll do everything we can, working with our dedicated officers to make sure we're doing the right things. The decision to go into 114 territory isn't one for the Cabinet to make or me to make as an individual. It's purely the decision of our more than able Section 151 officer. The situation, though, does remain serious, but we need to work together to make sure we remain ambitious as a city, we remain ambitious as a council, but we do whatever we can to ensure our finances remain robust as they can be, given we've had now 13 years of austerity. That's the reason we're in this position. There isn't any decisions that other local authorities have made, or bad decisions, can I say, that this council has made. It's just the position we're in because of austerity. Okay, so with that, Cabinet recommendations for item 12, 2.1 to 2.11. There was no recommendations from exec scrutiny either. So all those in favour from recommendation 2.1 to 2.11. Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to item 13 under performance, the council delivery plan and Q1 performance monitoring. Heather.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report presents the council delivery plan for 2023 to 24. As Cabinet will be aware, the council plan 22 to 25 was approved by full council in March 22 and is focused around the 4 city themes of green, growth, vibrant and resilient. The supporting delivery plan, which can be found in Appendix 1, is updated every year and communicates the targeted actions that we will take as a council to achieve both the city's and the council's priorities. it's worth saying that this plan has been reviewed in light of the new Cabinet's commitments. The actions contained within the plan are subject to regular review. So we look at them every 3 months with any changes approved as part of performance monitoring, and obviously we share those updates with Cabinet each quarter. The targets for supporting performance measures, which show the impact that we want to make, will be presented alongside the Q2 position later this year. So the report also presents the Q1 picture. Against the 2022-23 plan, and key elements can be found from paragraph 413 onwards. There's also a lot more detail shown in Appendix 2. So of the measures where targets have been set, I'm pleased to say that 69% had met or exceeded target at the end of June. 76% of priority milestones and measures were also assessed as on track or complete, and there were no areas reporting major slippage at this point. In terms of our priority projects, 67% were evaluated at the end of June as either green or amber green. There were also 15 strategic risks within the strategic risk register, out of which I was going to say all the detail is contained within Appendix 2. We do include key highlights in terms of the covering report. Cabinet may wish to add to these, but I guess ones that I would draw to your attention are, in the first quarter, we've created nearly 120 jobs through Derby City Council initiatives. That's just within the first 3 months of the year. We've also hosted the Great British Railways transition team, as you're aware that Great British Railways will be hosted in the city. We've worked with partners to progress our sustainability, our green board, and we've also retained the green flag status for 6 of the city's parks. We've also undertaken a lot of work to launch our family hubs over the summer, providing support to communities and families in local areas. We've also assisted nearly 200 households through our Healthy Housing Hub in terms of repairs, improvements, adaptations. We've also completed ongoing work in terms of our cost of living strategy and looked at a kind of a progress review of that, looking at where we can help prepare for the winter. I'm also pleased to say we've increased the number of carers who now foster for Derby City Council. That has increased to over 140, which is actually an improvement of 30%. We have also, internally within the council, implemented a new financial system. So they are just some of the highlights that are included in the report. There is obviously more to note. We have also identified areas of risk, of which there are some, and again, there's more detail contained within the supporting appendix. I think that's everything that I would like to say, but other than to recommend approval of the council delivery plan and to note performance for the first quarter. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Heather. I'd just like to put on record my personal thanks and those of the whole Cabinet for the speed at which officers in your team under your stewardship have adapted the council plan, given the change of administration and our new manifesto commitments that this Cabinet was duly elected upon, as well as those key highlights that you've highlighted. And I understand why you may not want to mention those, but Ashgate Nursery remains open. We are developing sustainable plans to keep all our libraries open. It was a pleasure to host Great British Railways first transition board meeting here in Derby, and I thank everybody involved in the campaign to win that bid to host the headquarters of Great British Railway here in Derby. We've got dedicated Cabinet members for the city centre, for cost of living crisis and for climate change. Commitments we made and acted upon immediately. I've said it before and I'll say it again, every part of our manifesto that we were elected on, we will deliver in full. Made a great start, so I thank all the Cabinet with the support of everybody involved here at this council, senior officers to more junior officers, for the way they've embraced the change of leadership and direction and worked with us for the people of Derby. Anything from Cabinet members to add? Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Smale.
Thank you, Chair. Understandably, I know this report is for the first quarter. Obviously, there was still a Conservative administration then, and obviously there's some key highlights in there, key successes, and obviously some slippages, and obviously some red projects. And I think there is some agreement, especially the summer hubs, the family hubs, the works that both obviously Yvonne and now John have taken over. You know, very grateful for the work that's been going around that, and I think that's something, regardless of political parties, I think we can support moving forward. It would be remiss of me not to discuss one key red item in there regarding the waste treatment facility. Obviously, a project director was appointed for 23-24, and it says soft market testing is underway. I'm just wondering if that soft market testing is still currently ongoing. If so, if not, what are the ramifications along with Derbyshire County Council? And if we are going to pause this project, as some to believe, is that permissible under the Cabinet paper that was passed in February? Do we not have to bring back a Cabinet report, both Derby City Council and Derbyshire County Council, to pause a project in the meantime? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smale. Firstly, I'll take you up on your offer to work together. There is a number of initiatives which, particularly now we're on 4-year electoral cycles, I hope your group will be more proactive in working with the administration and delivering over a longer period of time. The benefit realisation of having 4-year electoral cycles has to involve cross-party working for it to be successful. So I look forward to more of that, given now we've had 3 or 4 months since the elections. Unfortunately, the response so far, not just from your group, but from most groups, hasn't been that visible. I'm hoping now a bit of time has passed, we can all get over that and start working better together, delivering for the city. I welcome your ownership of Quarter One, because just last month, your leader was sat there blaming this administration for the financial performance for Quarter One, and given 8 weeks of those 12 were under a Conservative administration, I'm glad the message has got across that we weren't responsible for the overspend of the first quarter and how that set up the year. But again, I welcome your view of taking responsibility and ownership of that, and maybe you can portray that back to your leader. I'm not sure how much time you've got. I'm more than happy to have a debate and a discussion about the new waste treatment facility. I don't know how we can still call it the new waste treatment facility. It's a whole of a plant which sits there in Sinn Féin dormant and is a huge, or should be a huge embarrassment for successive administrations, both here in the city and the county. My views are crystal clear on the future of that plant, both now and have been for a while. I will do whatever I can in my powers to make sure that plant never operates again. Whether you like those comments or your colleagues at the county like those comments isn't my problem. What my issue is doing the right thing for the residents of Derby. Any other comments, Cabinet? Okay, so recommendations on page 1, item 13, 2.1 to 2.4. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, I move item 14, which is the exclusion of press and public. All those in favour? Thank you.